I'm sitting here with Patrik Schneider from Bloodbyrd, who I can't say have just released an album because I don't know when you are going to watch this. So as of today, they have got one album. It's called The Moon and the Sun and the Something.
The Moon That Dreaded Sundown.
The Moon That Dreaded Sundown. And I'm going to talk to Patrik about his approach to songwriting because it's a special situation. Patrik, I've known you for 34 years, forever. And I know that you are a great guitar player. I also know that you can't sing at all. However, you are the major songwriting contributor in Bloodbyrd. And what I want to know is how you do that.
I basically don't care about the singing. Many ideas come from the singer as well, so oftentimes he already has got an idea.
Just melody or also chords?
Well, there's two songs on the record that he had already played on his living room concert that we saw online, for example. So the lyrics were more or less done.
I'm guessing that are the two most depressed songs in an already very depressed album.
That's correct. So usually what we do when we work on one of my or Robin's ideas is we work out an instrumental, send Hendrik a recorded version with the phone, and then he does everything else. However, by now I think I know what he can sing about and what he has problems to sing about. I know that what we talked about in the Let's Talk Song video, that he, let's say he has his style of what parts to sing over and when to come in with his lyrics. For example, there's one song on the record where the third verse is actually a guitar lick instead of him singing.
I see,
because he refused to sing. Well, he didn't refuse, but he often says, no, not like that. He usually doesn't want to be singing over everything.
I see.
Because he likes the instrumental. So what we do is try to come up with parts that we think he feels comfortable singing about, but he's also in the room, so he can say, let's try this or let's try that. And since this is a fun project, what I try to write is things that I want to hear on the next record. So whatever that might be, usually rather bluesy and not as slow and mellow as the things Hendrik writes.
I understand. I know that approach, but I haven't known it for very long because in my new band, Ex Infinito, basically the same things happen. So I'm the guy who lets the others do their magic, and then I'm the last one to develop a melody and to develop the lyric lines, and they then make certain tweaks to maybe adapt to the new melody line, but 80 or 90% of the music is already there.
Also, as a filter for me of ideas, if I'm able to come up with a melody idea that I'm then completely incapable of transmitting or explaining to Hendrik, as long as I find something in my head that I think would sound cool over that, I think it's good enough to present it.
I understand. Now, because... And unfortunately, Henning can't be here today. I think Henning would totally disagree with us on that point because
very likely.
He always puts the melody and the vocals first, literally first. So he is a very, very firm, let's say, enemy of writing and producing anything without considering the vocals and having the vocals the top line, as they all also say. This is what actually also happens in pop music, that they have a produced track, just nobody singing over it. And then they would send it to maybe singers, to maybe songwriters, and have different top line suggestions on a very, very set and fixed arrangement where nothing changes. I think both approaches work in a way. Henning would not, because he's a very radical person. I think that both, and maybe I was more of Henning's opinion before joining Ex Infinito and before experiencing this myself. Now I understand why this is sometimes useful. Also, maybe it's important because you are not always in the same room when songwriting happens?
Yeah. Also, I think what you have to take into consideration is the circumstances that you are working in. In my case, this is a fun band.
Yeah.
Where
A shop band, as they say in Germany.
yeah, exactly. Where we don't expect anything from the music.
No commercial intentions.
No, we couldn't go 100% into the band, and you have to work with what you've got, in the sense of there are people in the band that have no idea what a C sharp minor actually means. What that means. Also, you have to work with their way of songwriting.
Unless you are the person bringing all the ideas and then telling everybody else, just play the fourth fret.
Yeah, exactly. The idea was everybody's contributing to the songwriting in the way he, since it's only guys, he can. And Hendrik, for example, always needs something.
I say.
To some instrument that can be changed afterwards, but he always needs some. So whenever we start with a song idea, he's usually there, listening, maybe coming in certain parts where he think he might have an idea, but then he takes the recording home and records something a week or 2 weeks later over GarageBand because he needs to let that sink in. And he always wants or prefers to have every instrument already there. For example, if we rehearse without the bass player, he then wants another demo when the bass player is here because he wants to hear the bass as well.
I understand.
I have no idea what role this plays in his style of writing melodies. But yeah, it's a different situation if you are, I don't know, if you are John Mayer and you're telling everybody else to do, or you have musicians that you can rely on that you know that whatever they will create, it will be great.
Yes. I certainly can't imagine the instrumental section looking very carefully at the melody and the individual notes and then making changes afterwards. Or does that happen as well?
Yeah, usually what he does is when he recorded something in his GarageBand, he sends it into the WhatsApp group, which is just happened a couple of days ago, and then everybody gives his input. First of all, is the overall idea something that we like or not? Also, in the first, let's say, 4 to 5 weeks, we had to find a style in which Hendrik could sing. It's a rock band, more or less, but his singing is not very rock in the sense of that he has a high, scratchy voice. It's not Axl Rose style or anything.
Yeah.
So we cannot write songs that would need Chris Cornell style lyrics.
Yeah.
So he then presents his idea, and we could say we only like, I don't know, the verse, or what he often does is singing long vowels.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes we say, yeah, that's again, you're stretching the notes too long. Things like that. Lyric-wise, we leave him alone. He can write whatever he wants, because usually we like what he writes, although we do not completely understand what it might be about. That again is his approach, as far as I understand it. He doesn't tell stories, but describes moods or feelings or situations.
So it's more Chris Cornell than Bruce Springsteen.
Yes, exactly.
Let's say.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking of a learning that people can take away when they watch this, because what you mentioned, I think, is a very, very interesting advice for the starting phase of a band. Mm-hmm. Know your members, know their strengths and weaknesses, especially for a vocalist, because he has got a biological limitation to what he can actually do. Know the range of your singer and find comfort zones for all band members that they can actually agree on. I think this is rather interesting, and maybe it makes sense to be talking to a relatively fresh band. Mm-hmm. When did you get together for the first time? 1.5 years ago, something like this? September,
October 2022.
Okay.
Yeah. I think was the first time we rehearsed with Hendrik before we tried out different singers, but that was the first rehearsal with the 5-piece as it is now.
So it makes a lot of sense, and I can imagine some of you watching this at home and trying to start a band or being in that very important beginning phase, and considering those things is a very, very good idea. To say, what have we got here? Have we got a shouter that can't really sing, so we apply our arrangements to that? But also, maybe, how can we challenge the individuals to kind of do this 1% more than they would have thought of themselves? Could also be a very good idea. Maybe not in the first single where you actually challenge, but leaving your comfort zone every once in a while and trying and finding out what you can actually do beyond your imagined borders can also be a very good idea. First song ideas, where do they happen? On the toilet?
Sometimes, yeah. They happen whenever they happen. There's no place I go to come up with new ideas. Sometimes, as we already talked about, the drum intro on the first single is the Smells Like Teen Spirit drum intro. Sometimes I take bits and pieces from songs I like or I heard on the radio, and then I come up with my own version of that.
Very good idea to do. Take something, steal it, make it your own.
Sometimes it's very obvious where things were taken from. Sometimes, as we discovered in the solo, things are taken from or drawn from songs that I didn't even realize, like the Red Hot Chili Peppers
Subconscious stealing is also a crime.
Exactly. And yeah, sometimes I stumble over a lick, maybe by mistake, that I think sounds cool, and then I come up with a lick or a riff that then gets taken into rehearsal. I usually record it with my phone, send it into the WhatsApp group, as Hendrik does with his lyric ideas. If I get 4 no's, we erase it, and if the guys say that's something we should work on, that's fine. Until now, I am lucky enough that I'm most productive in rehearsal with the other instruments, and that's where I come up with most parts. On the spot, sort of under pressure, as happened with the solos in the studio. When I have to come up with something and I can rely on dynamics by playing with other people, if I have drums and I can sort of anticipate the drums are going to, I don't know, increase the tempo or slow down a bit, maybe go half time, that's where I come up with most of the other parts that I do not have until then, when I only have a chord progression for, let's say, a chorus.
How often do you meet for band practice, and how important is that?
Usually once a week.
That's quite often.
Although
52 times a year.
Yeah, that doesn't happen.
Yeah, but let's say 45 or 40 times a year is already a lot.
Yeah, but we sort of had a business plan from the beginning. We said we need 1 year.
So a business plan without wanting to have a business.
Yeah, yes. Let's say time.
So you do the boring bit, which is the planning, but you don't do the enjoying bit, which is cashing in money.
Yeah, we had a time or a schedule on when we wanted to be where in the process of having a finished product. So before, let's say in the first 7-8 months, we met pretty much every week to come up with songs. Then we kicked out Hendrik of the rehearsal, so to speak, in order to prepare for the studio, because he was coming in later to sing. So we wanted to rehearse under the same circumstances as in the studio, as bass, guitars, drums, no singer, and but with a click that we usually don't have in rehearsal. So now that we have a finished record, we try to rehearse every week, maybe not the week after a gig, or we only meet to unload the car or something, but usually once a week.
Is there time for songwriting when you gig?
You mean during the gig? On the day of the gig?
In the period of gigging. Now, I know that you don't tour excessively,
yes,
but maybe you play 2 shows a month, and then the practice time in between goes to preparing the gig or goes to writing songs?
Usually to prepare the gig. So usually we have, I would say, 2 or 3 rehearsals before a gig to simply play the set a couple of times. Although with every gig and every gig preparation, I guess we need that less and less, because we only have those songs.
Yeah.
and we get better and better at playing them. So although the next gig is in March, which is exactly 1 month, so only 15th of March is the next gig, but still the next rehearsals are going to be songwriting.
Quite interesting.
Because we had a couple of gigs last year, so we are more or less ready to play.
Yeah. I think, and I'm not very, very knowledgeable about this, I think that the genre that you choose for a band defines how your songs are going to be written. Mm-hmm. So it defines the length of a song, defines the things that you are allowed to do, that you aren't allowed to do, that you should do, that you better do when you want to sound cool, if you want to fit in a way. Is that something that you consider in your process? Genre?
Yes. So something there's one example that comes to my mind that I would never be cool with is
piano ballad.
No, we funny story. We bought a piano
and then we sold it.
We thought it would be cool to have some piano parts, although nobody was able to play the piano. And we thought that
know your individual band members
to play a couple of
weaknesses
triads. We thought someone would be able to learn it. Then we sold the piano again because it didn't make sense. But something that I would never be cool with is taking a chorus and then for the last 1 or 2 choruses stepping it up a whole step.
Okay.
Which
so
is
modulation, yeah.
Yeah, modulation might be, but that exact thing as they do in Be With You, for example.
Mm-hmm,
or I think there's that one Bon Jovi, is it Living on a Prayer?
Yes.
I think.
Yes.
That's something I would never accept in this band because it's too much pop radio.
80s cheesy convention, yes.
Exactly.
Okay. So this is a no-go.
For that band.
How does the genre define your songwriting? Or what do you think of when you think of your genre? And second, how does that influence your songwriting? Maybe limit you, maybe also inspire you.
So since I write on guitar, which I think is fundamentally different to writing on a piano when it comes to finding chord voicings and so on, I try in this band to not think diatonically, in the sense of blues music can be seen as very parallel and symmetrical if you look at chord movements.
Yes.
So there's 2 songs on the record where we change the key from verse to chorus, for example, just by moving one shape to one place or another. So although I know the harmonical background, there's one song where the chorus is E minor, B minor, A minor.
So and E minor.
In the bridge, it's B major, A major, G major, E major. Which the G major is taken from E minor.
Yes.
Which the other verse is in.
Yes, and so it's basically a major minor shift
but
with
that
the
wasn't
G major.
What I was thinking about. I thought, let's keep it simple. Try to turn this part of the brain off and just look at chord shapes and move them around and find something that sounds cool.
I see. This is something. What genre is it? Crunch? Post-grunge?
We got on a playlist that was called Divorced Dad Rock. Which I think is
there is also
Puddle
of Mud and Nickelback and stuff like this on this playlist, I think.
Yeah, that's something we would maybe not be.
Maybe what bands are you inspired by?
The initial idea was to come up with a mixture of, let's say, the Black Keys and the songwriting approach of Walking Papers, where it's more about the story. Jeff Angel once said on a show that I went to, "Don't bore us with the chorus."
Oh, so the exact opposite of what we teach all the time. So
exactly.
It's not don't bore us get to the chorus, but don't bore us with the chorus because it's too cliche and too expectable.
Yeah, and the story is told in the verses. And if you listen to Walking Papers lyrics, it's very present that he thinks about that all the time. And then what we got as a feedback was Placebo, because some people compare Hendrix's voice to the Placebo voice, which I can understand.
For the songs, not so much, right?
No, for the songs, not. Idols is something that many of us like, which I didn't know. Yeah, I don't know. I didn't know them before. Queens of the Stone Age.
Yes, I think it's early 2000s lo-fi I don't really.
It's more 90s, I think, grunge combined
Yes.
with that. So I don't know if it's called desert rock or it could be stoner.
Yeah.
Also sound-wise, what we wanted to incorporate were lots of fuzz.
Yes. So it's a certain intentional ugliness to it.
Exactly.
Right. It's not supposed to be pretty. It's
Exactly.
not supposed to be pop. It's not supposed to
Yeah.
be memorable, and this, of course, opens up new opportunities because if
I
you
wouldn't
don't,
say it's not memorable.
yeah.
That's a discussion that we sometimes have internally about how catchy or poppy or hooky do we have to be. And there are certain parts, sometimes guitar parts, that Hendrik, for example, thinks are the hook of the song. That's why for example, that one song he doesn't sing the verse.
I see. Okay, because you like the guitar bit so much.
Exactly.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So hooky, maybe not in the sense of a chorus that can be sung on a stadium tour.
Yes.
But maybe bits and pieces of some instrumentals that could also be a bass intro.
Yes, absolutely. So still, but you, of course, then you would still think in terms of hooks.
If possible, yeah.
But not in the traditional sense that it has to be the chorus melody vocal line, but could also be a tiny bit that...
The idea is kind of a horrible accident can be very memorable.
Do you repeat it then, though? Or does it
Yes.
get less accidenty and less horrible if you repeat it?
We do repeat
I
those
see.
parts, yeah.
Repeat the horrible accident. That's quite nice. Repeat the horrible accidents because they were so great in the first place. When I write songs, for me the song is the chord written on a paper, is the melody that you can either write out or just sing, and is the words. Those three things define a song for me. Now I know that for you it's a bit different because you also include, let's say, sound and arrangement as a very important part or factor in songwriting. How does your instrument, you already mentioned that before, that it is very, very different to write on a guitar compared to writing on a piano, and this maybe fuzz limitation that you set yourself, defining the songs you write?
That's a good question.
It's things that you can't really do when you have the fuzz on, right?
Not really. That might be a misconception about fuzz, because with fuzz you don't have to have the volume potty on your guitar fully up. So if you roll it back down, you can get clean.
You can also play thirds in the low register.
Sure,
Okay.
yeah.
So it's not the overdrive feeling that everybody hates.
It's all there.
Yeah.
So you can have that if you want to, but you can control it easily with your
Would you
guitar
play
there.
campfire codes though? Probably not.
On certain songs we do, although I'm not the one who's playing them.
Yeah.
Hendrik plays guitar on 2 songs.
With fuzz on or off?
With some sort of distortion, yeah, but lots of reverb, as you might imagine. The song, I agree that chords and lyrics and melody make the song. The gap that leaves for me are songs like Smoke on the Water, where the song is basically defined by one riff and everything else does not really matter. And that's something that is very hooky as well. I would even go as far as saying that the riff is more hooky than the chorus.
Absolutely.
So
no doubt about it.
Yeah, that's something that we take into the equation of what is this song. Do we need fuzz in every song? No, we don't. Arrangement-wise, I try to write parts that help the song in the sense of finding voicings or registers nobody else is playing in, but not necessarily sticking to the rules of if the rhythm guitar is moving up, I find a voicing that is moving down. So again, it's moving the same shape from one place to another instead of finding, let's say, all the chord voicings within the 7th fret.
Yes. Okay. So moving shit around instead of thinking your way through.
Because it has a certain sound.
Yes.
It sounds more not educated, bluesy.
Yes. And
less
dilettante in a way.
Yes.
Yes, but in a positive way. I get it. I understand it. All right. This is basically every question that came to my mind. If I think of other questions in the future, we might just maybe do a re-recording of the interview and have a couple of other band members in the room that didn't dare come because either they didn't want to be here or their English was too bad or any kind of excuse was valid not to be around me. This was Patrik Schneider from Bloodbyrd. They have one album right now. It's called The Stars and the Moon and the Twinkle Twinkles. And animals at the end. It feels very weird.